And we're back with Total Freedom Radio, the show that's all about raising the bar of knowledge, healing hurting people, and spiritual warfare. We're back with my friend Sharon Phipps, who is a life survivor from a very interesting story. And last week we were talking about how many years she was in court after finally reaching a divorce situation with a man who had some mental issues, some personality issues, and eventually went to prison for dating someone very underage. But Sharon, during those court years, you had some very interesting things because, as we were discussing at the end of the last show, people don't always believe us because it's so unusual. If you've not lived with a personality disordered person, if you've not lived with a person with mental health issues, as we tell our story, it is so confusing to them and so off normal, so completely bizarre that they either see us as just as bizarre as the person that we're trying to describe, or they
Hmm.
completely don't believe us. Therefore, we have to be a liar,
Absolutely.
which flows into the smear campaign that the mentally health issued person is handling. So, what was the result in court for you? All these professionals around you trying to figure out who's right, what's going on, what do they do for the kids, what do they do for the finances? What did you experience?
We had three courts. One was a divorce, one over a year and a half, and then we had a second round. It was all about money and rotation, and then we had a third round where he wanted to prove that I was abusing my son because I only had one child left at home under 18. He wanted to prove that there was abuse. He didn't want the child just to prove to live with him. He wanted to prove that I was abusive.
That
And he
unfit?
wanted to prove that I was religiously abusive. And the week before we were to go to trial over this case, um, he was arrested and incarcerated. He was gone. So we spent a year and a half all the way up to the trial, total waste of time, total waste of money. Um, and then there was another lawsuit, a fourth one, upon his coming out of incarceration. So the time frame up to the incarceration, we're talking about probably 10 years. 10 years easy. I think that I figured out from 2009 to 2017, I've been in court the entire time except for 1 year, 2010, I had off 6 months.
And
So
what was
I've
the
been
financial cost of all this being in court to you?
I do not know, but I did own my house straight out and I no longer do. So, I make a house payment now. So there was quite a bit in there. Um, I had an attorney who, it, all my attorneys pretty much from the pre incarceration are retired. I had help with the divorce attorney with my father, helped pay for that. He also paid for the wedding, so he figured he'd help pay for the divorce. Um, and and then the rest I was on my own. So I had an attorney who was affordable, maybe not the best at coming up with the arguments, but a very good listener. And so my brother and my father and my boyfriend would come up with ideas, and I would tell my attorney the idea, and he would say, "Oh, I think we can make that fit with the law." So he was a very good listener. He
Well, and
wasn't
didn't you
very
do a
good at,
lot of the research and bring it to court and hand it to
yes,
him? I remember you telling me
yes,
that.
he was always losing my legal documents, and I'm a firm believer in dressing appropriately for the court. So I would always have my little dolly with all of everything, every email printed, every anything that you could ever ask, because my ex being disordered, we would be coming in for this topic, but he would run it a whole different other way, and nothing was ever getting done in court. And he was his own attorney at some point. He was filing pro se. So you always had to be ready for whatever thing that of his wild imagination that was coming out of his head, because he felt if he spoke it, it was true. And then the judge would believe it to be true if I didn't have something to support it not being true. So I never gave really anything to my attorney that was um, the original. I always gave him the copies. So I really did enjoy working with this attorney, but after he was done with my cases, he went into a different area of law altogether. He is now a bankruptcy attorney only. He doesn't do family court. I think that I completely wore him out, but it was fun. It was fun. But
Let me ask you about the impact on the family too, because I know your goal when you were young, um, was to go into ministry, to spend your life in ministry. So all of this
it
has
pulled me
occurred.
out.
You're in battle in this court. You're worried about your children because the impact on the children has got to be there, and we'll get to that. But now you're spending this life in constant battle with someone
Yes.
you've divorced to get away from this, but this constant court cases keeps you tied to that battle. So what does
Yes.
that do with you
Yes.
inside that, "Okay, this is not how I plan to live my life."
So
How do you deal with that?
instead of studying the Bible and ministering to others, I'm always in this combative zone all the time, in this combative zone. You can't even have, he's unable just to show up and take his weekend, you know? Um, I finally had a code that I ran by. If he wants to give up his weekend, fine, keep the kids, but don't ever trade, because trading becomes a nightmare. It just more games, more games, more games. So you got to streamline things. You got to streamline them. And I discovered that co-parenting isn't really what you're doing. They have
Mm.
another term for it where you parent at your house and he parents at his house.
Parallel parenting, I think it's called,
Yes.
yes.
And it was the only thing that finally ended the conflict. You know,
And
when you're
how
at your
hard was
dad's,
it for
you're at
you,
your
though, to
dad's.
send your children to him for his time, knowing that he was so disordered that you couldn't live with him?
Um, I'm still trying to answer the first question you
Sorry.
ask, and then I'll get there. The first question you asked me, this is what I found very fascinating. Up for the first three, not the fourth, but the first three, I counted that there were 18 professionals who had touched our cases, whether they were guardian ad litem, that's a lawyer for
Mhm.
your child, or whether it was a mediator, somebody, because the court will always send you to mediation before they make a ruling to hopefully get it settled so it doesn't have to go to trial. Well, it's all going to go to trial. It's every single, if I want A, he wants B. Okay, then I'll take B. No, then I want A. Then, okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and I finally got with mediation where you go first and say what you want.
Well, it's not
Oh,
about what you want, it's about keeping you from getting what you want with a disordered person.
yes. So whatever I want, I'm not supposed to have. And so we've gone through three different mediators. We've gone through counselors. We've gone through guardian ad litem. We've gone through, I figured there were 18. Oh, and we got a counselor for my youngest boy at one point, and he played games with that. He wanted to turn it into family counseling. And I told the counselor, "You're here for my son. You're not here for me. I'm not coming in." And I'm not, because we're not doing family counting. I've been divorced over 10 years. And then he was, "Oh, you have been divorced over I've been divorced over 10 years. I'm not coming in for family counseling. You deal with me, you can deal with the ex, and you can deal with the son, but you're not doing family counseling. I'm not playing those games." And but I figured we had 18 professional people that had touched our case, and two believed me.
That was
That was
gonna be
it.
the next question. How many of them believed you? And what did it take to finally that none of them believed you? They're all
No,
basically coming against you. What did it take for them to finally go, "Oh, I was wrong"?
his incarceration.
And did any of them apologize to you? How was that handled on their end?
No. The No, no. As a matter of fact, my one of my favorite moments is the guardian ad litem had decided that there was no abuse, that I was not abusing the child. If the child wanted the child, they always say the child. If the child, his senior year, halfway into his senior year, wants to go live with his dad, he can. That because of the back child support that was owed, I won't have to pay child support. The ex is screaming. Um, she's got to pay child support or I can't afford to have him. And everybody's thinking, well, she's been having him without child support and you both do the same thing for a living. I don't understand, uh, at that point in time, we had a family business. We divided it. We were doing the same thing for a living. He can no longer do that, of course, now. But, and just all this crazy going on. And so, the guardian ad litem had a special place in her heart for my ex-husband, and I knew it. He's smooth, he's nice, he's good looking enough, and he did a number on her because
Mhm.
he knew that she was the one who was going to be making all the decisions. And so in my home life, right, whenever I referred to her as that was my name for her
I remember that.
because she was just so smitten with him. And I answered her questions the best I could, but I just knew, it just, my attorney had it. I wasn't worried about her. And then he ended up incarcerated and he never did get full custody,
And what did the judge say when he found out he was incarcerated? 'Cause I remember you telling me
So
about that. He didn't show up for
he got
court.
he got incarcerated in such a way, it was so close to the trial date that there was no time for anybody to inform the judge or the lawyers to do anything about it. So I had to just show up all by myself. In my box of goodies, I pull out his mugshot. I printed it off and I start handing out. And you got to have copies for everybody. I give 2 copies to this person, 2 copies to that person, and the judge is like, "Well, case closed," and gotta hand. I mean, what am I gonna do? I mean, I can't tell them ahead of time because there's not enough time. I just found out myself. You know what I'm saying? And he's gone. You can't and it was across state lines. So he's gone, you know? And I won my court case. So then a couple months later I'm being sued for the remainder of the fee to the guardian ad litem. Well, the court ordered that he was to pay the guardian ad litem. Well, don't matter. I figured out he was court ordered to pay the therapist. He was court ordered to pay the guardian line. He was court ordered to pay all these people, and he didn't pay any of them. And he didn't pay me either. He isn't going to pay anyone. So I know, because I've sat in court enough to know that the judge will rule that I am the parent of this child, that I'll have to pay for half of it. Well, I was lucky in some respects that my ex had paid like 80% of it. So I was only really responsible for about half of the 20% that was owed. So maybe it was coming up to around $500. I thought, oh, I'll figure that out. I'll make payments or something and just have her go away. Well, she sued me for non payment. And I realized she wasn't there that day. She doesn't know the ex has been incarcerated, that she's also suing him, and we're both supposed to be there. And I hand her a piece of paper with his mugshot on it. And she was then wanting to talk to me in this little tiny room. It reminds me of rooms that you would be in for band class when you're the little rooms they have for practicing your pieces of musical instrument in, or when you're singing, little practice rooms, for attorneys is what they remind me of. So she's got me in this little closet sized room, and there's a table, circular table. She's pacing around this table. She's going around it and around it. How could he do this to me? He made a fool out of me. And she's going, and I'm just sitting there very calmly. And then she remembers, like, I'm in this room with the other parent, that I'm there. And she looks at me because he really made a fool out of her, because she really went out on a limb for him, making him
Believe in him.
God's gift of parenthood to this
Yes.
child, you know. And
Familiar.
yes, he was everything, and I was, oh yeah, he has a mom, but he has a dad. This dad is awesome. And oh yeah, he's got a mom somewhere. I was not on her radar at all, and one way or another. And she comes to her senses, and the only thing that I could think of to say was, it could be worse. And she goes, "How could it be worse?" Meaning professionally. For I said, "You could have been me. I married him." And she just died laughing. She goes, "Yeah, I suppose it could be worse." I mean, you were just his attorney for his kid. I married the man and had children with him. I don't know.
Still tied through
You
court
know,
cases.
yes, but
Give me just 1 second to acknowledge my sponsors, and then I'll let you finish that. But I really want to ask you too, and I'm sure my audience are wondering at this point, want to know what the impact on the children has been. And let me acknowledge my sponsors, and we'll get right back into that. Page, and please click in from there, and it'll take you straight to my
Hang on a
page,
minute. We're
and
starting
it'll
at the wrong
kick back
place
just a
again.
little bit to folks, you want to help Total Freedom Radio stay on the air, please help support our sponsors. We have Simply Clean Foods. Primary focus is to bring clean food to people all around the world and change the way we look at freeze-dried food in our daily cooking. As a community-focused company, they strive to help our veterans through food donations and provide food to victims of natural disasters. They're dedicated to providing the best quality food you can buy next to fresh from a farmer's market. Their stringent quality controls and absolute zero GMO policy in testing for heavy metals make them unique in the storable foods market. They say just because our food is freeze dried doesn't make it just for emergencies. Our line of fruits, vegetables, and meats are suitable for everyday use, and you won't have to worry about throwing away food that you don't use. Just take out the amount you need and reseal the package for use within the next 6 months. Go to rinalynn.com to the affiliates page and please click in from there, and it'll take you straight to my page, and it'll kick back just a little bit to us to help us with our cost. Thank you so much for supporting our sponsors. Tell 'em Rena sent you. Are you looking for a cozy escape? Visit an English style tea room in downtown Kilgore, Texas, where every bite is a taste of tradition. From delicious sandwiches and scones to the finest teas, we've got something for every craving. Are you planning a special event? Our charming space is perfect for private parties, baby showers, and more. Treat yourself today at the Grand Empress Tea Room where good food and great memories are made. Tell them Rena sent you. Sharon, I want to apologize to you. I've laughed through a lot of this discussion. It's really not a funny discussion. The reason that I'm
no.
finding it amusing is because your story, number one, you were there for me through all of it. But seeing you survive showed me that I could. And also when he was incarcerated and the truth came out and this wonderful, brilliant story that he had painted of himself, painted you the blackest black. I learned that sometimes the
Absolutely.
perpetrator, the liar, the one who is creating this false delusion, they do get caught. And so that's
Yes.
where, and I've talked to so many women and men who's lived a version of this, that
Yes.
it's so nice to see. Sometimes they do get caught, but it's affected our families. There's not a one of us that I've talked to that our children haven't had some issues. So if you
Mhm.
wouldn't mind, talk about the family issues that you've dealt with between you and your kids, between the kids and the truth of finding out what the truth is and what it's done in their personal lives.
You do have to give children some room to figure things out. As they it always seemed to me the fairest thing that I could do was to launch my children. So not everybody has this ability, but I tried to get my children off to college as quick as I could or to a safe place, you know. Because they shouldn't be worried about mom and dad and all the drama at home. They should be worried about what they want to be when they grow up. And one thing about us men and women who are married to people with disorders is you get very, very, very good at making things as normal as can be.
Yes, you do. And then it
You
hurts
know,
you later because other people go, "Well, you just look so normal. Why didn't you say anything?" Well, when you tried to say anything, they didn't believe you.
yes, all the drama and the chaos that was always there. Um, I don't know. I guess maybe I was a very good enabler or something. I don't know what the word is, but I could shift on a dime. I could tell by the way he walked across the room if it was going to be a
Definitely,
drama day or a normal day. You
definitely.
know, um, everything, all my senses were spider senses, were always where they were supposed to be all the time. And then the divorce comes along, and you just, you know, um,
Well, you think it's over, but it's not.
it's not over. And I remember all the confusion of just trying to figure out, because of the years of gaslighting. Every now and then I still will ask people, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Because I just want to make sure. I have had brain surgery and years of gaslighting, and I think the gaslighting was worse than the brain surgery. And I remember that this way. Do you remember it that way too? And people will be very kind, like at work or wherever I'm at, or when I'm out and about. If I just say I've had challenges, I want to make sure my brain cells are firing correctly. And I
Well, and one
think
of the
now
things that I learned during that healing period too is when you live with someone that's disordered for that long, your brain patterns start tracking their brain patterns
yes,
in order to survive with them. Because
yes,
you have to please them to survive with them. But when you get out of it, about I think they said 4 to 6 months later, your brain
yes.
starts trying to revert to your normal, and
They they
it's
say
such a change
they
that it's like
say
a computer crash.
they say 1 year of healing for
Yes.
every 3 years you were in the relationship. So I was married for 20 years, and I think it took me a good solid 5 or 6. And then on
Understand.
top of that, I had the brain issues. So now I've got children in tow because I've had the brain tumor as well, of which I think some medical people could blame being married to a disordered person promotes. Your thyroid gland is one of them, and
Mhm.
brain tumors is another one of them. So, we're blaming him for everything at the moment. So let's
Well,
just keep going down.
hypervigilance, it just keeps your
Yes,
whole system in a, fight or flight,
yes, yes.
fawn,
So,
it's fight or fight, fawn, or there's 4 things, I can't think of the other, but it just keeps you on that edge all the time that's not
yes.
normal.
So, so my kids were in love with daddy, Disney daddy. He did it well. Just so he's incarcerated. And the very first thing that my girls did was replace dad with another sociopath. So they have
Mm.
sociopathic type boyfriends. Now I have two
Mm.
grandsons. Both my daughters were pregnant at the same time and weren't going to tell me. And of course, I'm nobody's fool. I figured it out, tricked my youngest into telling me. And I went and knocked on my oldest door. My youngest called me, Mom, where are you going? Oh, I have business in out of state, and I'm getting on an airplane, and then I'm going to go straight from the airport, knock on your sister's door who's 9 months pregnant. And by the way, so are you. You know, so both boys are 3 months apart. I figured it out, and so how do we find ourselves in a place where you're going to have a baby and not tell your mother? Are you serious? There's so much you need to know for family history, medical background. When we give birth, we have low iron issues. You need to know, be right on iron, right, like right away, or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, just all kinds of things you need to know. My uh, older daughter finally got away and she's doing very well. My younger daughter, of course, got into a lot of legal trouble. So even though my ex was incarcerated, I was in court twice a week still for my younger daughter. And I have boy, girl, girl, boy, and all of that turned out well. I During COVID, I moved both girls back to my area, and they're doing extremely well. But now all of a sudden, I'm having conversations with my daughters, and now we're having
Mm.
adult conversations about the same man.
3 minutes.
The same type of man. So you have to give your children some time to figure it out, and it takes a lot of time. and some children you don't ever get back. I'm praying for my youngest. I don't know when and if for sure that's going to happen. The Lord tells me it's going to happen, but it may or may not be in my lifetime. So maybe I'm here, but I'm not mentally here. I don't know. But you got to trust the Lord, got to do a lot of prayer, and have a lot of real conversations when they're old enough you know so I have two beautiful grandkids, but I have two fathers of those beautiful grandchildren that are one's incarcerated and the other one's in and out of jail with incarceration as well. So you know
Well, and our children are taught not to trust us, so it's harder for them to get the information they need to call it what it is, to figure out what's actually happened to us. So not only are we dealing with what's actually happened to us and learning the names, learning the truth, but now we have children that are damaged by it that won't come to us
and they
and
have
seek
had their
us.
own experience, and they have had
Yes.
their own experience. With my oldest daughter, she came at me with a whole bunch of charges, and I passed this advice along that if an olive branch can ever be given, if there's ever an opportunity, and I found myself apologizing to my daughter for the most ridiculous things. She was screaming at me, accusing me, and I apologized for it.
1 minute, 1
Whatever
minute.
whatever perceived offenses they have, she needed to get it all out, whether real or perceived, whether because this is how she understood it. And keep in mind, I swept everything underneath the rug so well
Yes, me too.
that every accusation, I could hear her father's words accusing
Yes.
me was coming
Yes.
out of her mouth, and I just straight out apologized for it. And now we're 6 years down the road from that, and now I'll say, "Oh, I remember when your dad came to me and he said I could bury you in the backyard, nobody would ever find you." And she'll go, "Yeah, dad would have said that." Because she understands that
Now,
something's not right with dad. But that wasn't going to happen when she was in her teens, wasn't going to happen when she was in her 20s. That's something much more further down the road, you know. So you're in this for the long haul,
well, and at
you
some
know.
point, our children grow up, and now they gotta frame this. Sharon, we are out of time, and this has been a fascinating discussion, and I'd really like to have you back again someday down the road. We can talk about some more, but I just wanna encourage everybody out there that has been through something so difficult, so off the norm, tell your story. Don't let people silence you,
Absolutely.
and don't take on other people's opinion of you, his, your children, the people around you that don't understand, because anybody that's not been through this, they literally cannot comprehend the difference in a marriage that is normal of some sort, even if you don't get along. And when it's a complete onslaught of someone disordered and you have no idea what you're dealing with, and you're just trying to live a normal marriage and you're living this, and now you're dealing with the aftermath. And I think it goes on for an extremely long time. Thank you for joining us on Total Freedom Radio, and we'll see you next week.